So we've looked at two types of conclusion questions. Identifying the main conclusion, again, 2 to 3 times. And that has to be done by inference. You have to say, I infer this is the main, so that jump. Which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above? Again, which I'm saying is a conclusion. It doesn't have to be a conclusion, but it's got to be an extension. And that is by inference as well. So both of these issues we move by inference, and when you move by inference, you can always be wrong. You're going to be required to respond to the issue, which of the following must be true. And that is not by inference, that is by deduction. So you're going to say, which of the following must be true? Well, how many of the answer choices can comply with that directive? One. Well, because you're saying it must be true, right? So, but I'm sure there are a bunch of test takers who are looking at an issue where it is clear and apparent that there can only be one issue, and they're looking at all 5. Well, no. And if something must be true, it's so close to what we just did. It's so bloody close to it. If something must be true, doesn't it have to flow ineluctably, some appellate language, doesn't it have to flow ineluctably from the information above? It's got to, there can be no doubt. So again, if I say to you, it is now a fact that Paris has trees, and it is now a fact that all cities have trees. What is Paris? Yeah, and it's just not open to discussion because you can't argue with the premises. If you could argue with the premises, then you'd be in business, yeah? But you can't, because a fact on the LSAT is a matter for which no support is offered. So and they're taking you into the body of how a lawyer has to lawyer. Because I don't get to argue with the statute. I don't get to argue with what the act says that does or does not authorize the president to build a wall. I don't get to argue with the act. That is what it is. Congress wants to change it, God bless them. But notwithstanding any personal feelings I have, that's it. So in the must be true world, that's what they're doing, but it's nowhere near as prerogative. Okay, so how do you recognize it? Gosh, they say which of the following must be true. How about that? And every time they say which of the following must be true, you're looking at a deductive conclusion question. It's deductive, it must be true. And again, I stress, well, as you brief these issues, stay within the components of the argument. Don't go outside of them. And when you get to the answer, you've got to stop at the answer.
So is most strongly supported by the information above inductive or deductive reasoning?
It's inferential. Would be
Inferential.
Yeah, absolutely. That word most means it doesn't have to be true. So let me see if I can find a few of these. I'm sure I will. And again, it'll vary from exam to exam. It's rare that you don't find an exam where this is tested 2 to 4 times. It's very rare. let's go to exam 64. Section 1. And question number 2.
Section 1, number 2.
So this is exam 64, section 1, question number 2. And that's the way this thing always appears in the form of the question in terms of, again, you always begin with issue recognition. It's going to say which is fine, must be true. Again, brief them and decide for yourself whether or not there's a correlation between the question number assigned to the issue and the level of difficulty that you perceive to be there. And you will, I suspect. Okay, so question number 2, I have a slash mark after the word today, slash mark after the word sustaining, and I'm ready. If you're, you know, there are 70 to 100 Florida Panthers alive today. Stop. Okay. Stop. This represents a very large increase over their numbers in the 1970s. But their population must reach at least 250 to be self-sustaining. Stop. So is it fair to say that as of now, their population is not self-sustaining? It's been an increase, but it's not self-sustaining. See where this leads us. Their current habitat is not large enough to support any more of these animals, however. Okay, now doesn't the third sentence introduce that there is a habitat that these 70 animals are presently in? Yes? Don't we now know from the second sentence that the 70 animals cannot be self-sustaining because it's fewer than 250? Yes?
Yes.
And wouldn't it be fair to say that if we don't find an additional habitat or enlarge the present habitat, they will not be self-sustaining? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the answer. And again, that's consistent with being question number 2, where you don't overthink it. It's inviting success. Now I'm done. And I say, okay, so what must be true? A, some part of the panther's current habitat is only of marginal quality. I mean, it's stupid. I mean, I respectfully, you know, if you picked it, it's not stupid, but if you didn't, stupid. B, if the population of Florida panthers ever exceeds 250, it will be self-sustaining. And that must be true?
Yes.
That if it ever exceeds 250? Or is it saying you have to get to 250 to have a shot?
Oh, must be at least.
Yeah, but I can see B, I can see people taking, absolutely. Yeah, because you're reading for what kind of common sense makes sense, but it's not what the writer wrote. Right? And you get the why. Yes, Sabine, you get the why. Okay? C, unless Florida panthers acquire a larger habitat, their population will not be self-sustaining. How about that? Does that follow from the 3 premises?
Yeah.
Is that a statement that must be true? Yeah. Yeah, I gotta go, okay. So again, it's reading, it's a different way of reading. So let's see if we can find 1 or 2 more of these. Okay, got one here. Exam 63. Exam 63, section 1. Question number 6. Okay, so what do I have here? if the statements above are true, which one of the following must be true? Everybody get, we recognize this issue, right? And again, your plan going forward is about 2 of these will be, again, maybe none of them, but on a representative test, 2 to 3 questions, maybe as many as 4, will be which of the following must be true. So you're going to have 2 or 3 conclusion questions for the main conclusion. You're going to have 2 to 4 conclusion questions on which of the following is most strongly supported, which is different. You're going to have 2 or 3 likely on which of the following must be true. So you add them up, and we're getting to a kind of a robust number. But they're different ways of approaching each. Okay. So here, on number 6, section 1 in exam 63, have a slash mark after the word fail. Then I have this ugly sentence, right? So the ugly sentence says to me, because you see the next slash mark is the word capacity, right? So one of the reasons I'm saying to you use the slash marks is because, again, the writer, to increase level of difficulty, has tools. One of the tools is to give you a sentence that's way too long.
Why is a slash mark never put at the last sentence?
Because it's not.
Because it's the last sentence. Hey, you want to put a slash mark in the last sentence, you do it. You get out there and you do it. Because it's the end, there's no reason.
Okay.
All right, now, but you get, I'm already saying for me, given the structure of that second sentence, I'm inferring a likelihood of increased level of difficulty, which doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, just means I'm not thinking I'm going to get through this in 80 seconds. Okay, here's the law. Let me read it. Small experimental vacuum tubes can operate in heat that makes semiconductor components fail. Stop. So, we're talking about vacuum tubes, of which I know nothing, right? And we're talking about semiconductors, of which I know nothing. But would it be fair to say these 2 things of which I know nothing are being compared, right? And that's what they're testing on, not the noun of the thing being compared, but the 2 things are being compared. And what have I learned here? I've learned that vacuum tubes can operate in heat. So that gives them an advantage, right? Advantage goes to the vacuum tube. Yes, talk to me. Read the first sentence. Advantage vacuum tube. Let's say advantage tube. What's the advantage? It can operate in heat that the other one can't operate in. Okay. Next sentence. Any component whose resistance to heat is greater than that of semiconductors would be preferable for use in digital circuits. Now I'm stopping. You get it's a long run-on sentence, yes?
Yes.
You get I have a comma. I'm stopping. Let me process that very long clause, right? Would it be fair to say that now we have an advantage going to the vacuum tube because the beginning of the second sentence says that any component whose resistance to heat is greater than semiconductors would be preferable to the semiconductor, yes? So now it's go to. And then they say, in digital circuits. Okay, whatever. I'm pro tube right now, right? Yes, I'm pro tube in digital circuits, but I'm pro tube now. But only if. Oh. So now, whatever has the advantage because it resists heat better, we're going to take that over the semiconductor, but only if, so it's got to meet these conditions. And I assure you this is, I don't know whether it's the 3, 4, 5, but ain't one of 2. Only if that component were also comparable to semiconductors in all other significant respects. Okay, so it's got to be equal to the semiconductor in all those other ways you might measure it. Okay, and then they give you some examples, such as maximum current capacities. That's one of the examples. So if I stop there, in order for me to take the tube, it has to be equal to or greater than the other one in maximum, whatever that is, right? It's got to be equal, at minimum equal to, or I don't want it. However, Vacuum tubes' maximum current capacity is presently not comparable to that of semiconductors, so I just said no to the tubes, because the tubes are not comparable, and the guidance I was given is that I was to select this only if it is comparable in all respects. It is not comparable in this respect, and therefore, what must be true is unless things change, I'm not using the tube, and therefore I will be using the semiconductor component. Isn't this exciting? Yeah.
It's an awful question to ask.
It's a wonderful question. It's awfully wonderful. But do you see the breaking down of it? And the question there, of course, is would you have enough time under exam circumstances to do that? And the answer is for most people, probably not. But I have the answer now. You with me? Unless something changes, we don't want the tubes. Yes? Okay, now let's do the answers. A, vacuum tubes, those are the tubes, are not now preferable to semiconductors for use in digital circuits. How about that? We nail that one? Bada bing, bada boom. I gotta go now. Do you see it? And do you see what they're requiring you to do? Yeah, isn't this fun?
When you have time to do it, yeah.
You have plenty of time to do it. You don't have plenty of time to get 100. You have plenty of time to do it. And would it be fair to say, would it be fair to infer that if taking our time, if we can break an argument down like this, right, and understand it, is it fair to infer from that that when we're presented with a more straightforward argument, we may be at an advantage in breaking it down in less time? And that's really it. You will be. You will be.
That's a good question.
And then you'll notice stay you'll stay away from this because it's going to take too much time. Unless that's part of your plan, you go back and you say, I need more time. Like if I had this exam, right, and I had my number on the top right-hand column, so I'm looking questions 1 through 7, I have my exam plan, right? So I put the number 8 up there, 8 minutes, right? And I start looking at number 6, I'm not doing number 6. I'm gonna put a asterisk, I'm gonna circle it.
What do you say? If you're going in your exam question and you go, I didn't get this one, but I'm not gonna go there. Uh-oh, sorry.
No, no, it's not you, it's the front row.
Oh, what happened?
You haven't. It's the chattering. It's subdued chattering. But his chattering. Sabine, I'm sorry, you said?
No, I said, can you explain that? Because you said it like a couple of times.
Yeah.
The 8-minute thing, and then, so what is yours?
Well, part of this, right, is you're gonna have a plan.
Yeah.
Okay, which you're gonna practice in advance over and over, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my plan would be, if you take exam 63 as an example,
Okay,
you're gonna open it up.
okay.
In this case, we see questions 1 through 7.
Mm-hmm.
You might see questions 1 through 6. In other words, each exam is a little bit different, right? But based on your preparation, you should say, there's a maximum amount of time I'm going to spend on these 2 pages. These are the 2 friendliest pages I'm going to see. If that's your conclusion, right? If you prepare and you have the same conclusion I have. So you're going to say, well, now I'm at home, right? So let me do this. I have 35 minutes overall. In logical reasoning, I really don't have to spend time surveying the whole thing. Like in analytical, I'm going to say you got to survey it. In reading comp, you're going to survey it, right? You're going to decide what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Not logical. Logically, you're going to open up and you're going to say, if in these 2 pages, I allow myself 8 minutes. That's it. Preferably I come in under that, right? But the 8 minutes doesn't require me to answer every question. The 8 minutes that's the maximum amount of time I'm willing to spend there. The reason I came to 8 minutes is because in my preparation, I found exam after exam after exam after exam on the first 2 pages, 90% efficiency. If I don't find 90% efficiency in 8 minutes, well, then it may have to go up to 9 minutes. right? Or I'm settling for a lower rate of efficiency. But this all got to connect to what am I trying to achieve, right? But again, that doesn't mean I'm answering every question. If I don't answer question number 6, is it fair to say I will come in under budget? Yeah, because I've done this all before. Because I know, based on my experience, the likelihood I'm going to take 1 minute and 20 seconds on questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 are slim and none. Right? That my average time among those questions will be substantially below 1 minute 20. And what that allows me to do is bank that time.
I got it.
Right? Then you're going to turn the next 2 pages. And on exam 63, you're now seeing questions 8 through 13. Okay. But I've already done this at home. I've already gone to those next 2 pages. I already have feedback as to what's my rate of return and what's the amount of time. Right? And based on that prior feedback, I'm just a machine when I go into the test. Again, if I look at question number 11 or question number 13 or both, right, and I say, no, not now. The reason I'm saying no, not now is because it's going to take more time than I'm willing to devote to it. But I'm aggregating the time I'm saving, and then I'm coming back. And then if I see something that I just say, no way, no how, I'm not coming back. You know, so if I get to 19 and it's parallel flaw and it runs, it looks like a reading contest, no thank you. I don't need to come back. I'm going to guess A or E and I'm going to get out of there. And you're going to practice and you're going to practice and you're going to practice. And if you practice and practice and practice and you're coming out with a 139, what are you not? You're not ready. You're not ready. You know, it's nothing personal. It's okay. You're just not ready, right? But if you practice and you practice and you practice and you're at a 157, what are you?
Ready.
Oh, and you know you're ready. Again, you can't. I speak too much from my own experience. When I am confident is when I am prepared. You with me? When I am unprepared, I am not confident. There's just no 2 ways about it. It's not being. I don't think it's being born with confidence. I think it's acquired. I mean, some people are. I'm not, right? But acquiring it, preparation. You do this, right? And don't mess around. What % of test takers do you think will be doing as rigorous a program as you will? It's de minimis. Absolutely de minimis. And then you go in there and you crush that. It's nothing personal. You got to go in there, you got to crush that. It is in a million years nothing personal. You will die. Just saying. Okay. So. Now I've lost my place here. We just finished one, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If we can get one more, that's great. Don't want to go crazy over this. Okay, I have one here. This is exam 70. I can't believe it's 12:30. I know you guys are saying it feels like 4 in the afternoon. I can't believe it's 12:30.
I'm not sure if we will know it's not, but the experiments for us are also.
All right, hang on to that. I'll get to that. Hang on. You bring that up as soon as I'm done with this one. Exam 70, Section 1, question number 8. Exam 70, Section 1, question number 8. And the issue is presented to you as, if the statements are both true, which one of the following must be true? Okay. I have a slash mark after the word cream. I have a slash mark after the word effectively, and I'm done. So again, the text there is approachable. And here it looks like I'm reading about a blender and stuff, so it's not this remote stop. Okay. What do I got here? The result of attempting to whip cream in a blender is a thick, velvety substance rather than fluffy whipped cream. Again, do you see the comparison, it seems there's a pattern here, right? That it doesn't matter that you're comparing vacuum tubes with semi-duct. It's that you're comparing two things. It's A and B. So here, we're comparing, we're using a blender, and we're attempting to whip this. And the result is we get something that is thick rather than fluffy. Okay. Next sentence. This is because a blender's container does not let in enough air to whip the cream effectively. Just stop for a second. Okay. So now I have an explanation for why is the substance thick. Would it be fair to say there is now a relationship between the thickness of the substance and the amount of air that got in there? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know whether I want the thick substance or I want the velvety substance, but I know air is a part of what's happening here. Okay, I got it. And that's using a blender. Final sentence. Although using a special whipping cream attachment in a blender, see how blender is repeated, right? So now we're putting a special attachment on it. Although putting the attachment on it can help somewhat, it cannot fully compensate for the container's poor intake. And it stops there, so you pick it up at that point. So would it be fair to say that the special attachment is not going to cure the problem? It may improve it, but it's not going to cure it. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So if I put that special attachment on it, it's not going to be, if I wanted it to be fluffy, I'm not going to get it completely fluffy. Is that fair to say? And that's about all I can do with this. If you're saying to me, well, what must be true? It must be true that the attachment does not achieve the goal. Right? That's got to be true. That if my goal is to have the fluffy stuff, and I put the attachment there, is it fair to say you don't get enough air to get the fluffy stuff?
That would be,
And that's it, I'm done. So now it's just, okay, what did they say? A, cream that has been whipped ineffectively generally becomes thick, velvety substance rather than a fluffy whipped cream. I don't know that. You know, I don't know that. I'm just comparing these two. It's not, I don't know what generally is the case. B, the use of a special whipping cream attachment. I like that because that's right in the facts, right? The use of that attachment in a blender does not suffice, meaning it is not sufficient to whip cream completely effectively. How about that? Because I think we were told here that to whip cream effectively, we have to let enough air in, right? In that second sentence. And what is the attachment not going to change? Well, it may change the amount, but it's not going to change that you didn't have sufficient air. So if I look at B, does B a statement that must be true? Let's look at it. The use of the special whipping cream attachment, which comes right out of the facts, yes?
yes.
The use of that in a blender, which comes right out of the facts, yes? Does not suffice, which means is not sufficient to whip cream completely effectively, right? Now you have to look in the argument, where and how did they use the term completely effectively? And that is in the second sentence, where they say to whip it effectively, you have to get enough air in it. And they say in the third sentence, though you are likely to improve it, you cannot match the air that was in the container. Yes? Isn't this exciting?
That's why it's exciting.
I'm sorry?
Can we look at C?
We'll look at all of them, yes. But B is a statement that must be true. Does anybody get, because then the issue becomes, not is C not a good choice, it is simply then explaining why it is a statement that doesn't have to be true. But do you get that B must be true?
I got it wrong, so.
Well, that's not saying, that's separate from, you'll never understand C. In other words, you'll never understand, but that's too strong. It's going to be more difficult to see why C is wrong until you see why B is right.
Understood, because it's an absolute.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for, absolutes.
You bet we are.
Not most then,
Yep.
or probable, whatever.
Must be true.
Right, not
Must be.
85%, but 100%.
Correct. That must be, that's correct. So we'll look at C in a second. Yeah, that's right.
Could you define a deduction?
Well, can I define a deduction? A deduction is something that must be true. So a deduction is the type of thing we usually
Then
use.
how does it differ from an inference?
Must be true. There is no inference on the planet that must be true. Any statement you're saying that has a probability of being correct. So you can get into kind of interesting sort of useless arguments. Must it be true that I died? Must it be true that I died?
Well, it depends.
Well, you can't say sometimes.
Well, it depends what the conclusion is.
Well, must it be true that I died?
To establish your humanity, then yeah.
Depends on how you define
Have I died yet?
No.
Well, then I don't know that it must be true. Is it 99.999999999% to infinity likely I will die?
Yes.
That is a clear and materially different statement than saying you must die. So in inference, we just mess up. Because an inference is a statement that just everybody agrees, yeah, that's gotta happen, but in fact it hasn't happened or it didn't happen. If we went back 1,000 years and we said, must it be true that the sun revolves around the earth? You know what? Everybody would have said, it's true. And everybody would have been wrong.
So then with respect to question 8, would it be fair to say that C is an inference whereas B is a deduction?
Well, I'm gonna get there, I don't know, that's where we're going, we're heading on to the, let's figure out what C is. It's likely that it is a compelling inference, but I haven't read it yet. But that's separate from, do you understand that given the facts we've given fact about a special attachment, and we were told that the special attachment was attached to a blender, so we're right on all 4 corners of the evidence, right? And then we were told that it must follow that that blender is not sufficient to whip cream completely effectively, and that is correct because the second sentence says a blender's container does not let in enough air to whip cream effectively. So it doesn't do it, and therefore putting the attachment on it can't change that. And the only thing they've added is the word completely. Now, let's try it. What does C say? C says, so this is a statement that must be true. You know, when attempting to whip cream in a blender, okay, when I'm attempting to whip cream in a blender, when I'm doing that, using a special whipping cream attachment, it's almost like I feel an erotic sort of thing, you know? I feel like we're in the kitchen and you got the whipped cream out, you know? When attempting to whip cream in a blender, using a special whipping cream attachment, always,
Underline that.
always produces a fluffier result than could be obtained without using such an attachment. Because there could be multiple unspoken ways, other than that special attachment, to whipping cream. This is, again, you've lost the comparative thing. This is, it's all 3 of these that we've done, but comparative. You're going A to B, which is, either it's going to be fluffy or it's going to be not fluffy, right? You're specifically addressed to how the special attachment accomplishes that. That does not mean it's the only way to accomplish that. That means if we're using the special attachment, we're doing the analysis based on the use of that example. That does not preclude some other way, in the absence of a special attachment, to whip the cream. So, does that make it somewhat more clear why C doesn't have to be true? Somewhat, kind of, a little bit, itsy bitsy.
I gotta do practice.
Okay, and that's right. And that's the nature of the test, is not,
So words like always, not, those death words, so just basically be aware of them or stay.
but think of it this way, yeah, I mean, for sure, but again, it's more the concept. If we're given information about a comparative circumstance, so it's just A and B, right? And we say, for whatever reason, B produces a certain outcome that A doesn't. That does not mean that there isn't a C, D, E,
Got it.
and F.
Fine, like the
Right.
raining thing.
And if the author wanted to preclude C, D, E, and F, the author had language to do that. Meaning, if the author had said, this is to whip cream effectively, it can be done so if and only if you have now precluded C, D, and E, right? But that language is not there, and it's precision. But it's not formal logic. It's precision. Have any formal logic. Okay. So I'm thinking maybe let's stretch for a few minutes here.
There you go. Right. Lean back a second.